Hello, welcome to this podcast. My name is Natalia, and with Andrea, we are going to talk about prehistoric Britain. The prehistoric period began when the first humans arrived in Britain and ended when the Romans conquered the ancient Britons and Britain became part of the Roman Empire. The prehistoric period is divided into three ages. They are known as the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age. As the Stone Age is an extremely long period of time, it's also divided into three periods: Paleolithic or Old Stone Age, Mesolithic or Middle Stone Age, and Neolithic or New Stone Age. So let's start with the first one, Stone Age Paleolithic. Around 800,000 years ago, Britain was joined to Europe by the White Land Bridge, which allowed humans and animals to move around the whole region. The extreme cold of the Ice Ages in Britain probably forced humans and animals to leave and return during the warmer periods. People were hunters, gatherers, and nomadic who followed animals and vegetation. A final age covered Britain around 70,000 to 12,000 BC. In those days, England was covered in treeless tundra with glaciers, and in warm periods there were oak woodland and birch trees. Fire was discovered about 500,000 years ago. For human beings in the Paleolithic age, it was one of the most important discoveries. The climate was extremely cold, and with fire they could heat and light their caves, cook their food, and frighten wild animals away. Several different species of human existed at different times during the Paleolithic, sometimes overlapping. The oldest species found in the UK are Homo antecessor, dating from around 1 million years ago, and Homo heidelbergensis, dating from around 500,000 years ago. Our own species, Homo sapiens sapiens, who arrived in Europe just before another human species, Neanderthal, became extinct around 30,000 years ago. The most famous discovery is the Red Lady of Paviland in South Wales, which dates from about 30,000 BC. This lady is actually a man who was the first berries to have great goods such as beads and other ornaments. Animals like mammoths, elephants, lions, deers, rhinoceros, among others, lived in England. The humans made fleet tools called hand axes and lived in caves or very simple shelters. They also made clothes from animal skins, and they made jewelry of animal teeth and shells. These early people hunted animals like wild horse, red deer, and wild cattle.
Mesolithic Britain took place between 10,500 BC to 4000 BC. The most important event during this period was the end of the Ice Age. This huge event brought about many changes. First, it brought warmer climate, which changed the landscape drastically. Then, people returned to Britain as climatic conditions improved. For most, Britain became an island due to the rising sea level caused by the warmer temperatures. What is more, animals associated with cold climate died out, which influenced human diet. The new prey demanded new hunting tools like spears, harpoons, and bow and arrow. This last one, the bow and arrow, had to be smaller than its predecessor because as the land became heavily forested, people had little space in the woods to actually hunt. Humans now begin to follow the hunter-gatherer lifestyle, moving around the land to better exploit resources. The Neolithic period started around 4000 BC and lasted until around 2200 BC. At the beginning of this period, people migrating from continental Europe introduced the resources needed to farm. They were the Iberians, and they kept animals, grew corn, and knew how to make pottery. During this time, long barrows were used for communal burials. New enclosures, known as henges, were built. These were centers of religious, political, and economic power. They were made of earth banks and ditches, and inside of wooden or stone circles. The most famous one is Stonehenge, whose precise purpose remains a mystery. What is known is that around 2400 BC, huge blue stones were brought to the site from South Wales. Incidentally, flint mining began around this time in places like Sisbury and Grimes Graves. Furthermore, the stone-built houses at Scarabray in Orkney show the development of small settlements in Britain. These houses were made entirely of stone. They had fireplaces, storage shelves, stone beds, with rushes or heather for warmth.
Bronze Age. The Bronze Age dates from the first appearance of bronze in around 2200 BC to the introduction of iron around 800 BC. About 2500 BC, a group of migrants settled in Britain. These newcomers belonged to the Beaker culture. Beaker people live in clans led by powerful chiefs. They were tall, strong-built, and round-headed. The Beaker way of life involved making pottery and metal, holding feasts, and building stone circles. In the Bronze Age, ancient Britons learned to work with copper, tin, gold, and bronze. Human burials were often covered by large circular mounds of earth or stone known as round barrows. Barrows became more elaborated in size and shape in 1600 BC. At first, most of the people buried under round barrows, but then, over time, cremation became more common. Initially, items were made from copper, then bronze, which was made by mixing copper with tin, gradually replaced stone as the main material for tools in 2200 BC. Tin was mined in southwest England, and copper and gold were sourced for Ireland and Wales. From about 1500 BC, people built round houses from local materials, wooden walls, and a roof with reeds or straw. There were no windows, but the doorway often pointed the east or southeast to let in the morning sun. Most round houses had a room and a fireplace. By 1500 BC, field systems became more common and people learned to enrich soil with natural waste materials. There were almost certainly different classes by that time. The basis of the Bronze Age diet were cereals like wheat, millet, and barley. Tin and copper were exported from Britain. The presence of bronze swords and hill forts will replace henges, such as a rise in conflict and war.
Iron Age Britain started in 800 BC and lasted until the arrival of the Romans in 43 Anno Domini. The Celts are the stars during this period. They were advanced technologically, they knew how to work with iron and made better weapons. The use of iron technology and the introduction of more advanced plugging methods meant more productivity, which led to population growth. Celtic hill forts, which were local economic centers as well as a defense against enemy forces, were built. As money, they used iron bars and later coins. During the Iron Age, life was mostly rural. People lived in small villages and farmsteads, and most lived in thatched round houses. Women had more independence during this time than at any other. As regards religion, the Druids were important members of the ruling warrior class. They were illiterate, but they memorized all the religious teachings, the tribal laws, history, medicine, and other necessary knowledge. Even though they didn't have temples, they met in sacred groves of trees, certain hills, by rivers or by river sources. Sometimes, their worship included human sacrifice. Funerals didn't involve grave burial, but some, probably those of important people, did. In other parts, people were buried in graves, as in East Yorkshire, or were cremated, as in southeast England.